People of the JonTV1 audio listens, listen to me now as I share my most recent pronouncement, which I will not continue to do with you in this reasonably crappy Winston Churchill knockoff voice I will return to in a minute. You know, what I've come to the conclusion is this. Whereas in the past I've made statements to the effect of American democracy is dead, you know, there's dead and then there's dead. I have also said that Hillary Clinton is, and I quote myself reasonably roughly, a corporate whore and a warmonger. I have also said that my vote is not a prophylactic. And now in the great American tradition of sticking to your guns by directly contradicting yourself and demonstrating the fortitude and balls necessary to be a ruthless son of a bitch and win, I now feel necessary to declare that my vote is a prophylactic. Here's why. It turns out that humanity is way eviler than we had thought, and really I'm not making this pronouncement as a comedian. In fact, at one point I announced my candidacy, said I was running for president. I still am, I'm running for president. I'm just smart enough to not vote for myself, because I know it'd make a shitty president, and that's what Donald Trump doesn't have. He doesn't have the discernment necessary to say, I'm an evil, self-centered, sociopathic son of a bitch, and I'd make a crappy president. And the reason why people are voting for Donald Trump is because they feel like dipshits, and they feel inadequate. And they want to see a vulgar, reactionary, imbecilic loser in the White House so that they'll feel less crappy about themselves. And they say, hey, maybe I could be a billionaire or president one day soon too, or possibly win the reality show known as America. Problem is, this used to be a pretty great country, and it's one of the last great superpowers and bastions of, democracy and stuff on the planet. And so the notion that we would have a complete and total fucking sociopath for a president kind of bugs me. And so now I've decided to do what I just said and demonstrate the fortitude, etc., bullshit necessary to directly contradict myself. And in doing so, let me explain. And I'm going to use what many people in the audience may not understand as an analogy. An analogy, for those of you who don't know, is when you draw parallels between one situation and another. So let me explain. In the past, whereas I had said my vote is not a prophylactic, I will not defend against greater tyrants with lesser tyrants. The problem is that the reason why my vote has become a prophylactic is because Donald Trump is sort of the equivalent of, and let's start with Hillary Clinton first, she's chlamydia and he's AIDS, okay? Chlamydia, you take the penicillin, you wait a while, a few weeks, you're back in action, buddy, you're cool. You can survive chlamydia. AIDS, not so much with the AIDS. You see, that's an analogy. Let me give you another one. A lot of people have said that Donald Trump is sort of like Hitler, and I really beg to differ, and here's why. Hitler was one of the evilest men in history. He killed 6 million of my people. He did some shit that probably will ever be redone, simply because that doorway in history will never fully open. But it's cracked a little bit in the direction of a populist sentiment of reactionary, vigilante, ignorant, assaultive, tyrannical, potentially fascistic, potentially concentration camp-like bullshit that we just can't have. And so in drawing another analogy, and you remember what an analogy is, okay? Let's look at it this way. Donald Trump is not Adolf Hitler. Donald Trump is sort of like Hitler light. Remember back in the day they had the Coors Company, interestingly enough, run by Adolf Coors, Golden, Colorado. He was trying to sort of remarket the whole Adolf name. Didn't work. People still drink Coors. But the thing is, it's like tastes great, less filling, right? So with Donald Trump, he's not Adolf Hitler. He's Hitler light. He's sort of like, all of the fascism, none of the singing. Because the most annoying thing, and I've never personally been put in an oven, but it sounds horrible, the most annoying part is just before they kill you, all that singing is really annoying. So will he kill a bunch of people? All presidents do. He may kill more. Is he a complete and total sociopath? He contradicts himself 30 seconds later, thereby demonstrating the same fortitude as me. And so yes, he is. Her, not so much. So let's retally, shall we? Her, corporate tool. Her ex-hubby broke the economy. It may never be fixed again, and they're debating fixing it with Sarbanes-Oxley and the rest of that crap. But, capital requirements, schmapital requirements, really. You know what I'm saying? Good economies and good planets are hard to find, and currently we live in a 3-tiered system where there are 3 centers, China, Europe, and us, and if 2 portions of a triangle fall, one portion of it will not hold the motherfucker up. And so for this reason, I need to say again that with the whole analogy thing, Hitler Light, not chlamydia, AIDS, the man is a sociopath on a level that we just can't have in the White House. And so therefore now, my vote has become a prophylactic. In conclusion, I would like to just say that, as I said before, I am running for president, but I'm not voting for me. And I want all my followers and all of Bernie Sanders followers and all of Don Trump followers, really, to come to their senses and realize that this man is not as smart as me, because I'm smart enough to know that I'm not the right guy for the job. And by the way, it's not because I'm smart. He's stupid, I'm smart. That said, I'm smart enough to know I really don't give a shit and therefore would make a shitty president. It's an evil system and I don't want anything to do with it. He's a self-promoting tool. That's why he wants the job. But again, that said, he's stupid enough to think he can do it because, again, all Don Trump knows is he's awesome. He is, just ubiquitously ebullient and tremendously awesome. And if you would be like me, then we could all be tyrants together and fuck the rest of the world. Possibly thus define greatness as the original principles of this country, which is that we are a bulwark against tyranny. But we have to know what tyranny is, and the way it stands now, it's mostly us. And what we're saying with the whole Don Trump thing is, go tyrants, we want to have a bigger dick. We want to fuck the rest of the world even harder. We've been too weak. And what I'm suggesting is the opposite. That what Jesus said is, what you do to the least of these, you do to me. And when you have a society that's fundamentally unjust, it's a real bummer for everybody, including rich people, if only because they have to step over really dirty, crazy poor people when trying to get down the sidewalk, and it sucks, and it's cheaper to give them a place to live. Studies show, and I will repeat this, God, is this thing still on? It's going to die. What is the time signature on that? John just can't read a time signature because he's gone insane. 7 minutes, I got 3. Studies show that it is much cheaper to house these people and even to give them free treatment and free food and just try and help them than it is to shame them into not being poor, because wonder of wonders, when you take the poor and charge them money, you know what you make them? Poorer. I wonder if this person's going to park. I would so love it if they would park. Can you please fucking park? What I'm saying is that in conclusion, let's just allow Winston Churchill to finish this speech that I'm making. Because it's not the presidential candidate in me that's saying this. It's not even the comedian in me that's saying this. It's the prophet of the Lord in me that's saying this. I'm predicting mass planetary collapse, economic, war, health crises, the lot of it. And so what I'm saying is, whereas in the past I have said that we have nothing to fear but fear itself, now I feel obligated to tell you that human beings are inherently rapacious creatures who feed off the sufferings of others and do not know they're doing it. And whereas it's true that only fear is what we have to fear, if fear-mongering allows us to become a bunch of populist vigilantes that elect the next Hitler Light, that's a real problem for the whole world. And the problem at that point is that the enemy is within. And so as before, all we had to fear was fear itself because we were fighting Hitler. And he was outside of us and we were going to kill him. Now we have to fight our inner Hitler, just like Mother Teresa said. And that's a little harder. And so we really can't elect Don Trump because he is meshuggah, to use a Jewish word, in a way that is just beyond the pale and on the verge of some populist vigilante bullshit that really could lead to a hard time. In fact, a harder time for the planet, which is going to have a hard one because all kinds of shit is going to collapse soon. This is why Jonathan Cutler is so crazy that he's having me, a crappy version of Winston Churchill, a really lousy one actually, to come out here and tell you that he's not the prophet of the Lord. He's just a guy who saw some shit, and he's telling you not to vote for Donald Trump because, as he has said, his vote is a prophylactic, and yours should be too. I, not Winston Churchill, have improved and approved this message, and therefore will now conclude with the notion from John, which is, we can't elect this guy president. You know what I'm saying? Time signature? Red. We can't elect this guy president. He's a sociopath on a level that Hillary is not. And, it's like, I will deal with some chlamydia to date. AIDS, not so much, okay? And by the way, he was wrong. Don Trump was wrong. I'm not just voting for her because she has a vagina. We elected a black man, a constitutional scholar who wiped his ass with the Constitution while president and broke my heart doing it. I'm voting for her, because we can't have a Don Trump for president. Did I fuck that up good enough? Because these are production notes. This is what I was pa.